Everyone thinks they understand what happens inside a nursing home. They imagine quiet hallways, friendly nurses, maybe a few old people playing cards near a window. But most people only see the version that appears in brochures. I saw the other version because my own daughter sent me there. And 3 weeks later, she sold the house my wife and I spent 34 years paying off. I was 94 years old, and according to the paperwork she handed the doctors, I was no longer capable of living on my own. The strange thing is, I remember that day perfectly. I remember the sound of the pen scratching across the paper when she signed it. I remember the look on the doctor's face when he avoided eye contact, and I remember the moment I realized something that took me 94 years to understand. Sometimes the people who betray you the worst are the ones you trusted the most. My daughter's name is Linda. She's 61. The last normal conversation we had happened at the same kitchen table where I once helped her with her math homework. She placed a folder in front of me. Inside was a psychiatric evaluation. Cognitive decline, memory instability, unable to manage independent living. I laughed when I first saw it, not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous. I asked her one simple question. Who wrote this? She said it was from a doctor I had never met. That's when I noticed something strange. Linda wasn't looking at me. She kept staring at the table. You know the way someone stares when they're trying to avoid seeing something they already know is wrong? 3 weeks later, I was moved into room 27 at a nursing home 40 minutes away from my neighborhood. The house was listed online 5 days after that, sold in 9. Room 27 wasn't large. Single bed, plastic mattress cover that crinkled every time you moved. A television mounted so high on the wall you needed to tilt your head just to see it. One small window that faced the parking lot. Most mornings I watched people arrive to work. Young nurses with coffee cups, families visiting relatives they were slowly forgetting, and sometimes ambulances. A woman named Carol worked the morning shift. She was kind. Everyone there was kind. But kindness in a place like that doesn't always mean what you think. Kindness can also mean routine, efficiency, management. They called everyone Dad or Sweetheart, not because we were family, but because names stopped mattering after a while. The first man I spoke to there was named George. George had been a mechanic for 40 years. His hands still moved the way mechanics' hands do, precise, confident, like they were fixing something invisible in the air. Every afternoon he sat near the window pretending to adjust an engine that wasn't there anymore. One day I asked him what he was working on. He didn't even look up. Transmission problem, he said. Car won't shift. What kind of car? He paused. Then he slowly looked at me. I can't remember. That moment stayed with me, because it wasn't just his memory that was fading, it was his life. Something strange happens inside places like that. People don't disappear all at once. It happens slowly. First, your schedule becomes someone else's, then your meals, then your decisions, then eventually your voice. I started noticing it around day 30. Men who once ran businesses, teachers, veterans, engineers, men who had built entire lives, now sitting silently in wheelchairs facing televisions nobody was really watching. Not because they had nothing left to say, but because no one was asking anymore. So I started writing. A small black notebook I kept hidden inside my coat pocket. Every day I wrote 3 things: the date, the weather, and one thing I noticed. Not because I wanted to write a diary, because I needed proof. Proof that my mind was still working, proof that I was still here. Day 47. Rain outside. George forgot my name again. Day 103. Cold morning. Someone cried in the hallway at 2:15 a.m. Day 219. Linda visited. Brought flowers my wife used to hate. Left after 19 minutes. My wife Margaret died 5 years earlier. 52 years of marriage. She had a way of seeing things before they happened. One night, near the end, she said something I didn't fully understand at the time. "You built a good life," she told me, "but you never prepared for what happens when you're no longer useful to people." I thought she meant retirement. Now I know she meant something else. I found out the house had been sold on day 112. Another resident had a tablet computer. He helped me search my old address online. The listing showed photos. The kitchen Margaret remodeled. The oak tree I planted in 1981. Even the small crack in the driveway I had promised to fix. The price was $412,000. Sold in 9 days. That was the moment I stopped feeling angry. Anger is loud. What I felt instead was quiet. A quiet kind of sadness that happens when you realize you misunderstood someone you raised. By day 300, I had learned something important. The doors weren't actually locked. Not exactly. There were sign-out sheets, procedures, phone calls to family members. But during shift changes, there were small gaps, moments when no one was paying attention. I started watching the routine. Night staff leaving, morning staff arriving, coffee cups, yawning, clipboards. There was a window, 4 minutes long, sometimes 5. Day 412, 6:58 a.m. I woke up before the alarms. I got dressed slowly, put on my coat, took the photograph of Margaret from the nightstand, placed the notebook in my pocket. At 7 a.m. exactly, I walked down the hallway. Nobody stopped me. The front desk was empty. The sign-out sheet was sitting right where it always was. I signed a name, not mine. Then I walked out the front door. I expected someone to shout. No one did. I expected alarms. Nothing happened. The sun was just rising, and for the first time in 412 days, I felt like a human being again. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a public library, trying to decide what a 94-year-old man does after escaping his own life. That's when I saw the flyer. Room for rent, quiet home, affordable. The phone number was handwritten. I called. A woman answered. Her voice sounded tired. "How old are you?" she asked after I explained my situation. 94. There was a long silence. Then she laughed. "Are you serious?" "My name is Walter," I told her. Another pause. "My name is Maria," she said. "I have a 7-year-old son." "That's fine," I said. "I like noise." Maria had been divorced 6 months. Her ex-husband had drained their bank account and disappeared. She had $380 left, and a mortgage she couldn't keep paying. The room she showed me was small, but it had a window, and the window faced a tree. I moved in the next morning. The first few days were quiet. Maria didn't talk much. I didn't either, but every morning we drank coffee at the kitchen table. After a while, something changed. She started asking questions about Margaret, about my work, about the bridges I helped build during my career. One morning she said something unexpected. "You remind me of my father." He had died when she was 14. 3 weeks later, her son Daniel came home from school holding a drawing. Stick figures standing outside a house. He handed it to me. "That's you," he said. "Mum says you used to build bridges." I looked at the picture. There was a tall stick figure with grey hair standing next to a smaller one. "Who's that?" I asked. "That's me," he said. Then he pointed to the tall one again. "That's Grandpa Walter." Maria turned away quickly, but I could see her wiping her eyes. The neighbors didn't understand. A 94-year-old man living with a young single mother? They made up their own stories. But the truth was simpler. Maria needed help keeping her house, and I needed a place where someone still saw me as a person. Linda called 2 months later, first time since the nursing home. "How are you?" she asked. "Good," I said. "Where are you living now?" "With family." She paused. "What family?" I looked across the kitchen. Maria and Daniel were arguing about homework. I smiled. "My real one," I said. Then I hung up. I'm 94 years old. Every morning I wake up in a room I chose. I drink coffee with a woman who sees me as the father she lost. I help a 7-year-old boy with math homework. And sometimes we walk past a small bridge near the park. Daniel likes to stand in the middle and look down at the water. "Did you build bridges like this?" he asks. "Some," I tell him, "but the important ones aren't made of steel. They're made of people." The strangest thing about growing old isn't the wrinkles or the slower steps. It's discovering which people in your life loved you, and which ones were simply waiting for you to become something they could take. I spent 412 days in a place where people slowly disappeared. But I didn't disappear. I walked out, and somehow I found a family waiting on the other side. If you made it this far, tell me something in the comments. Do you believe family is defined by blood or by the people who choose to stay? Because sometimes the most unexpected bridges lead you back to life.